Hey there, this is a live system that I've been using for a project, and it's no longer happening, and I don't have any notes on it yet, and I'm potentially going to come back to this project and need to be able to reestablish this patch, so I'm creating this video as patch notes, but I'm going to post it because someone might find this inspirational or might find solutions to problems they're facing within the video. So I'm just going to go through this patch, A, as a means of me getting it back one day, and B, as a means of contributing to some form of knowledge base. Anyways, it's a live system. It's designed to chase MIDI clock. In this case, it was chasing a Roland MC505, or a Boss MC505, Roland, kind of same difference. And then it's three voices. Drums coming out of an Expert Sleeper's disting, a subtracted voice using tides through a mixer, and then through the mixer in this filter, and then into a VCA, I believe. Again, it's been a minute. Yes, through a VCA. And then rings, which is also a subtractive voice. It's a resonator, then going through a make noise Dynamix to articulate that voice, and then a make noise mimeophone, make noise / sound hack mimeophone for effects. That's generally what the system is. Metropolis is the sequencer. I've got, oh my gosh, I can't remember who makes this mixer. I'm going to throw the name and some subtitles over this so that I can give the people who make this credit, because I've completely blanked. It's been a while since I've used this, and it's been a while. I bought this mixer 2 or 3 years ago. It's a great mixer. Anyways, so it's three voices, drums, subtractive mono, subtractive potentially poly. Let's go through and hear them all. I've got them coming in, being controlled by two different, an expression pedal and then a Boss FS6, like a dual foot switch. These go to VCAs. They're going actually through sample and holds that are being clocked by the system, and then into these VCAs, so that you can see the drums coming on a downbeat. You can't see me hitting these switches per se, but like you can hear they're turning on in musically relevant points. I think it's set to a bar. So that's what the system sounds like when it's running. So let's go through and unpatch the system and talk about what it's doing as we do that. I'm going to turn down my speakers. And I think what I want to do is start over here with the mimeophone. So here's our output. It's going to bother me that I can't remember the name of the mixer. All the three voices and this fourth effects returner are all going through buffered malts. So that I can hand an engineer, like a front of house tech, tails. So 3.5 millimeter to 1/4 inch to DIs, so that I hand FOH individual outputs. I can definitely just send it all mixed if I'm doing a smaller gig that just has we have our own PA, there's no front of house engineer. But if someone's engineering, I can send them drums on one channel, et cetera, et cetera. So mimeophone comes over here to this mult. And then goes into channel 4 on the Cosmix. It's a Cosmix. The mixer is called a Cosmix. In the Cosmix. Still can't remember who makes it, but it's called a Cosmix. So channel 4. Input is coming from a mult. Oh, forgot to mention, I've got a Bafacco instrument interface, and it's getting summed with the send from the Cosmix, so that if I want to have effects on my saxophone or my flute, it'll come in here, and I can just basically use gain to mediate that. So we can get that out of the way too. Last but not least, on our mimeophone, I've got a clock coming all the way from over here. These tendrils are awesome. I love them. Dan, who runs the company, is an honest and really swell cat. They do present a bit of a problem when you're trying to unpatch, especially when you've done what I've done here, which is to sort of do some cowboy cable management. Okay, so I've got a mult here, and that is being fed by channel 8, or I'm sorry, channel 4 of this PAMS. So it's a divide by 4 clock. So you can see right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So every downbeat fires a pulse. So I've got a whole bunch of stuff following that pulse. I've jumped the top. It's passive mult. I've jumped the top to the bottom. It hasn't presented any problems as far as clock height. Sometimes when you mult clock signals too far, the voltage level isn't high enough for the module's input to see it. Did not have that problem with this system, so which was lucky. All right, so mimeophone is now unpatched, so we no longer have any effects. Next, let's do our drums, because they're going to be pretty easy. Drums are coming through this Dynamix, which is being controlled by this sample and hold. Sample and hold is taking input from, I just unplugged the expression pedal. It's not, I could probably just get another foot switch. I already had the expression pedal, so I could theoretically, one position on the foot switch is open, so the Dynamix comes all the way up. The other position is down, so it shuts, so it's mute, unmute, but I could also theoretically position that pedal somewhere in the middle, and because this is essentially a low-pass gate, or it's a voltage-controlled filter and a voltage-controlled amplifier all at once, it would turn down the level and also take out some high ends, so I could kind of create breakdowns by trying to find an intermediate position on this expression pedal. That is sometimes not an easy thing to do, so I didn't really do that much. Anyways, it's coming through here. I'm sorry, where were we? Coming here. Here's our level input, and then we're going out to another mult to the channel. So here's where we're coming into the Cosmics. So patch that. Again, I have painted myself into a corner with my cable management. So here's our split that's going up to the Cosmics. Let me just leave that there for a second. So this is where we're going from the Dynamics, don't know how to pronounce it, to the mult. Here's our level that is coming from this sample and hold, which in turn is one side, the sample is coming from the foot switch, and then the trigger for the sample and hold is coming off this same mult that was clocking the mimeophone. So it's a downbeat pulse coming over here. So I could unmute the drums on beat 2 and wouldn't kick in till beat 1, which means, like, for instance, I can unmute the drums and then unmute rings, and it would all come in on the downbeat. Let's see, I've got our output. It's coming down here to Dynamix. And then last but not least, I've got clock. And all these samples are 8 bar. I cut all the samples to be 8 bars long. Just made it easy, for instance, to put a little bit of variation in it so that you're not necessarily listening. And then it's coming out of PAMS over here, divide by 8. So Oh, actually, I'm sorry, not 8-bar samples. 2 bars. I think that I hadn't cut it as 8 bars, and I just hadn't. I think for some application I changed this, but this should be divide by 32. Again, haven't used the system in a few months. All right, so that, I believe, takes care of drums. So now you can see those are pretty easy. Let's go ahead and get rid of this guy. Channel 3 of maths, I just have coming from a stepped random. Oh, except at some point. I redid this. So normally it would be this smooth random. And that's going up because it's coming out of peaks. Peaks doesn't have attenuation. I've got peaks in split mode, so I've just got 2 LFOs going. It's really, I like this mode for peaks because you can just reach down and affect rate, affect shape, and then I'm doing attenuation elsewhere. So here, in this case, I'm taking channel 2, which is my my smooth random, as you can see there, up to channel 3 of maths, and that is then coming out on this little black. It's the only tendril that's righty to straight because it's easier to patch and unpatch. And I would move that around the system during a performance depending upon what I wanted to do. But it gave me some smooth random. A lot of times what I wound up using it is on my articulation, just to put a little bit of random on the fall times, or in some cases a lot, but a lot of times just a little bit of random on those fall times makes the part a little more interesting because it's a little less uniform. And real musicians, real instruments behave like that. Like your decay is not always going to be exactly the same, except for maybe a really nice piano, right? Every electric piano, but like anything else, your decay is going to be affected by a bunch of different factors, so that it's not uniform. Okay, that's my step random, or smooth random. Okay, so now how to do this. Let's just go backwards. So here comes rings. Everybody's favorite. It's one of my favorite. I've missed having it in the system at large, so this is going to be a nice deal. All right, so like everything else, it's coming to a mult. So again, I can 3.5 millimeter to quarter to DI to front of house. And then here's its sample and hold for its mute. Well, it's the VCA, sorry. That's coming off this sample and hold. And one side is the bottom foot switch here. And then it's being clocked by the same downbeat as everything else off this mult. So there's our sample and hold, and then rings is coming through this other Dynamix. So I've got the output of a make noise function, handling articulation in that case. Have we got this to the point? Yes, I can get this other cable out. Here, again, I would sometimes patch that random into this fall. And then that's being triggered, oops, wrong one. That's being triggered by the gate output of the second sequence on the Tropolix. That's everything there. Okay, so just took the odd out since we're in mono. Did not want to get stuck with half my voices. Then volt per octave is just, because I'm using a low pass gate, I don't need to mult that. It's just coming directly from pitch 2. We're going to leave that because we're pretty gacked in up there. I've got some modulation. Let's see. Let's do the other one first because it's less crazy. Damping's pretty crazy too. So position is being modulated by this little Paul Pledge cyclic skew, which is in cycle mode, and it's just a little triangle wave. So it's just using that to modulate position. Brightness and damping are being modulated by a couple different envelopes. Noise engineering synclastic impulatrix. It says noise engineering right on it, so it's got a wacky name. Great module. I don't think they make them anymore, but it's just a little, it's a function generator, but it's also just envelope, like it'll take gates and triggers, right? And it, I'm triggering it from this channel of PAMs, number 5. Let's get into 5 and see what it's doing. So it's, I've got, I believe, a Euclidean sequence, 30 steps, and then the number of triggers is being set by CV1, which is coming off this attenuation offset tile, the little pulp logic tile. So I can use this to fill the Euclidean sequence with triggers. So I can make it busier or less busy, depending upon where this is. So I've got 30 Euclidean steps, and then it tries to fill them symmetrically as possible from 0 all the way up to 30. It's a lot. Euclidean sequences are great. I'm not going to get into it here. So there's plenty of other videos, but I'm using this to trigger an envelope that then comes back over here. Ooh, I'm sorry, I just undid the wrong one. So that's the gate, sorry, that one's going to damping, but it's the same deal on this other one. So that 30-step sequence was going to gate, which is going to damping. Brightness is being modulated by this envelope that's being triggered by channel 6. It's another ×4, so 16th note pattern, like the last one. 14 steps, and that's being filled by CV2. And you can, on these pulp logic, you can set them to be either unipolar or bipolar. So I've got this one unipolar because PAM's input 1 is positive only. This one's set to bipolar because that one's bipolar. And then it's coming back over and was modulating damping, brightness. One's doing brightness, one's doing damping, and it's why I'm shooting this video, because I can go back and review it. So that's our modulation. I think that's everything for this voice, I think. That's empty, its input's empty. So, let's get to our last voice here, which is Tides. It's a great oscillator, it sounds so good. Same deal, let's walk it back. So, mult, going up to a VCA. There is a VCA on this, and I can't now remember why I wasn't using it. But I wasn't using this VCA. I'm using this Doepfer Mini instead. And then I'm using this VCA for the articulation. Oh, right. Okay, so this first VCA is coming off this sample and hold, which is coming off of the other foot switch. Here's our downbeat clock. Then that clock's coming over here, or that foot switch is coming over here and opening up this VCA, which is taking the output of this VCA, and this VCA is handling our articulation. So you see our CV is coming from maths channel 1, which is being multed from channel 1 of Metropolix. I wonder why I multed it. Oh, because I'm sending one set of triggers to modulation for the filter, one set triggers to articulation for the VCA. So this side was coming from Maths channel 1, which is in turn being triggered by Metropolis channel 1. This is taking the output of the filter. And again, this filter is getting input from a few different things and then coming into the CV for the low pass here. So we're getting channel 4 of Maths as just kind of a typical filter envelope, right? And then I've got another LFO here on the filter if I want to just have the cutoff point cycle. And then I've got, from way down here, I've got a channel of PAMs dedicated. So it would be sometimes a ramp, usually just a ramp of either downbeats or a whole bar or half, and then stepped random, but just clocked modulation coming in here. So envelope, LFO, clocked modulation, then all getting summed up to the low pass CV on the filter. And then also getting volt per octave off another mult. So this is our typical sort of subtractive setup where I'm taking the pitch out of Metropolis and malting it to the VC, or the volt per octave on tides, and volt per octave on Eudaimonia Dreadbox, one of their color lines. Nice sounding filter. Resonance gets real fun when you push it up pretty far. So then again, as I mentioned earlier. So, I'm taking slope from this cyclic skew, but since these don't have attenuation, I'm using channel 2 of Maths and then modulating the slope because on tides that is pulse width, but it also will modulate sort of the peak of the slope. So sawtooth, triangle, shark's tooth, right? So I'm modulating that because one of the nice things about tides is when you start modulating that, all the outputs sound really cool. So that would just be coming off of channel 2 of Maths. And then my 3 tides outputs getting mixed on the submixer here. Got a few more things we're dealing with over here. Let's see what's left. 24 pulses per quarter note clock and run coming out of the ALM MIDI, again, chasing a Boss 505. So that would fire all these in the system. Since I don't have the 505, I'm just using the start-stop on Maths. Then what is left here? Here's our jump, so that coming in here, so this is my downbeat going to that mult. This is a cable already pulled. This is a cable already pulled. So, and then I'm just taking, and I probably could have done this with a mult. Here, would have to use like some kind of stackable, obviously, because I'm just out of room, and I was already splitting my downbeat clock so many places. But I'm just basically, PAMS is sending, I believe. Oh no, PAMS is setting 16th notes here, not 24 pulses per quarter, and then a reset. It just goes high, starts, goes low, so that the Metropolis runs off the whole system. Last but not least, I'm taking main out to my output here, so that if I'm, again, sending an entire mix out the left side, I can gain it up and down here. So that's it. We are unpatched, and It'll be nice to have some of these things back because I just didn't ever want to unpatch stuff. So anyways, if you are a human who is watching this and watched this far, congratulations. Thank you for watching, and happy patching.